That means there are now 11,000 migrants living in shelters. 4,000 are still sleeping on police station floors and staying at the airport. Now, this is really startling. 30% of migrants here in Chicago are children. Majority of them are attending Chicago public schools.
Take the little scrap, the resources that we have, and put us at the bottom of the barrel. That's not fair.
Cameras saw construction crews clearing a vacant lot that we're told could become one of the tent camps we've told you about. Our Sabrina Franza has been digging into the project all day.
They believe the city has overextended itself and should be putting the tens of millions of dollars earmarked for migrants into Chicago's most vulnerable neighborhoods.
But the South Side has been under-resourced, underfunded for years, for decades. We have schools that need to be reopened. We have buildings that are abandoned that need to be business operated.
The group says the city has abandoned its Invest Southwest initiative, a Lightfoot-era program that was dedicated to reversing decades of disinvestment on Chicago's South and West sides, promising to align more than $2.2 billion through public and private funding.
We are taxpayers, we're property owners. Our money should go towards fixing our communities.
The city has received more than 15,000 migrants since August 2022.
We have no more room. Y'all are embarrassing Chicago as a whole.
According to analysis by the ABC7 data team, there are more than 20 active migrant shelters across the city, 7 located on the South and West sides.
Whether it's one shelter or whether it's 10 shelters, we're saying the facilities that are there for us, the money needs to be put into those facilities for us.
In a statement from the mayor's office about the group's concerns and the status of Invest Southwest, a spokesperson says in part, quote, "We are committed to continued investment for all residents, but especially communities on the South and West sides that have long experienced disinvestment. We are the city of Chicago, and our shoulders are big enough to support both new arrivals and those who have long called this city home."
Mayor Johnson, the black aldermen, the black alderwomen in this city, you will stand for the black citizens of Chicago.
Hey guys, back with the migrant update, and you know what Brandon Johnson's saying? He's saying spend, spend, spend. That is all Chicago knows how to do. They just found out that they spent $7.2 million in April and May. That's when we didn't even have very many migrants here. And who knows how much they're spending now. It looks like they found a spot for at least a couple of those tents, and they're cleaning them up, getting ready to install them. And as I said before, living in a tent in Chicago in the middle of the winter is not going to be a good thing. It's going to be a hell of an experience for these people who are coming from warmer climates. They're going to get a rude awakening to Chicago's snowy winters, folks. That's all there is. As far as Joliet has banished their idea of helping out the migrants. They've returned the money and said nada to City of Chicago and the state of Illinois and its $8.5 million gift that they had for Joliet. Who would have thunk, right? They dodged a bullet there, folks. It just keeps getting worse and worse in Chicago. Look at some of this video from the police station. I don't know. They got diseases running rampant. They got scabies. They got people flying in from O'Hare now. They've got people from Houston that are flying in. It's not just buses now. We got planes and buses, and sooner or later they'll be coming by train.
Now, the city says Mayor Johnson knows firsthand the impact of neglect on a vulnerable community and that he will never stop investing in people, all people, and delivering the affordable housing, fully funded schools, safer streets, and living wages that every person deserves.
12, where there are still men, women, and children sleeping on blankets outside and in the lobby of the police station. They are patiently waiting for shelter, along with about 3,000 others across the city. Now, for a couple dozen migrants staying here, that day finally came. In just the last couple of hours, women and families were picked up by city officials on a school bus, while another van took single men to their shelters. Well, this is a look inside District 12, where there is just a narrow path through the lobby as new arrivals crowd together. We spoke with one man from Venezuela who says he is grateful to be living in a shelter now. This after a long and dangerous journey to get to America in hopes to create a better life for himself.
Migrants continue to arrive in Chicago. Since May, 230 buses have arrived in the city. This week alone, that number is up to 23. Plus, there are more than 3,000 migrants right now awaiting spaces in shelters, and a lot of them are out at O'Hare.
That's where we find Casey Cronus. Casey, what is the situation there tonight?
Hey, Don and Scott. Well, city officials tell us that as of today, 764 migrants are staying here at O'Hare at the busing center. Now, they continue to arrive earlier this afternoon with several hundred more arriving today. Now, city officials say they are not being bussed in. Rather, they are flying from Houston, San Antonio, New York, and other cities. As you can see behind me, space is running out, and they are spilling out onto the sidewalk.
If nothing else, you get what you vote for, and chaos is what Brandon Johnson is bringing to Chicago. And hey, folks, I'm here to tell you, sooner or later, it's going to spread out across this whole state. We're going to have chaos and immigrants running loose, and no one's going to know where they're at or where they're from. Mark my words, folks, this is nothing but utter chaos, and it's not good. Who knows what's next, but it's not gonna be good.
And unorganized. It's how one volunteer group described a situation here at District 8 on Wednesday night, where 35 migrants arrived without a warning. It's just one of the many scenarios unfolding at police districts citywide, where communication with the city, volunteers say, is non-existent.
Now, earlier this afternoon, a group of migrants was dropped off in a yellow school bus, but we're told they had already been staying here. One migrant tells us that about every other day, they are taken to a local Park District facility to shower. Meanwhile, we also visited Chicago Police District 1 earlier, located at 17th and State. There, with the help of our photographer who translated for us, we spoke with a migrant who ventured here from Venezuela. Like so many others, he's been staying in the lobby of that police station, but tells us that this morning, officials at the district moved all of the migrants outside, along with their belongings. When we got there, the doors were locked and we weren't allowed in. The migrant we spoke with told us that most of the women and children were picked up and taken to other shelters, but it's unclear where those who are left are supposed to go, and we are waiting on a clearer response from city officials and police. Now, that migrant says conditions here are actually worse than they were at home.
In Venezuela, we never lived on the streets. Now we are living on the street, and we need to wait for some help.
And you know what Brandon Johnson's saying? He's saying, spend, spend, spend.
Staffing the migrant shelters cost Chicago taxpayers more than $7.2 million during a 4-week period this spring. So where did that money go? As we previously reported, Favorite Healthcare Staffing holds the contract to staff the migrant shelters and billed the city $20,000 for a single nurse during 1 week last December. The new invoices show despite hourly rates being reduced this spring, Favorite still billed the city for more than $16,000 for that same nurse to work 7 days in April. All told, in the 4 weeks we examined, Favorite charged more than $64,000 for the services of one nurse who was working at this YMCA high-ridge shelter, and he wasn't alone. Our analysis of more than 400 Favorite staffing employee invoices shows even the lowest paid staff rates were $50 an hour, the most expensive, $156 before overtime. That means in a year's time, Favorite could have potentially charged the city 6-figure salaries for employees working inside the shelters.
I told you Favorite should have been gone.
They have not set the standards for what we do in our city.
The costs have led to criticism. In Alderman Jeanette Taylor's ward, staffing invoices for the shelter at the former Wadsworth School totaled $1.4 million for the 4 weeks we looked at. At the Inn of Chicago, the city's largest shelter with more than 1,500 migrants, the total was $1.6 million. At the Social Club shelter in the Loop, $1.2. The mayor's office has noted favorites' hourly rates were inflated to cover administrative costs like hotel rooms for out-of-town employees, which is part of the reason the administration now wants to hire locally.
We've also renegotiated the emergency contract that I inherited multiple times. And so we're confident as we project out that we've put out an RFP to hire Chicagoans as well as Chicago businesses to be able to reduce the cost